Got a little special music presentation for everybody who happens to tune in.
We are here to celebrate the life that we've been given to resist the companies and the industries that put profits before our future and progress before the planet. We are here to stand for our rights. So thank you to everybody that has been marching on the front lines. Make some noise. So we barricade the roads, tear gas, rubber bullets only make the movement grow. Come prepared for battle if you come into my show. We steal their windy jackets till we leave them in the snow. Fight for our land, we will never back down. Never allow another damn pipeline in the ground. We protect the sacred, never let by. Yeah, put your hands in the sky. Yeah, you will not colonize me. I'm speaking the truth of the industry, they despise me. Try me, then there's a family united. Calling on the tribe, this is history rewrite. Stand for a new era, free of fossil fuels. Teaching all the people how to fight with tools. Can you feel the change? A movement in the tide. We will keep on marching to the pipeline dance. When I say no more, y'all say pipelines no more. No more. I say no more, you say pipelines no more. No more. When I say no more, y'all say fracking no more. No more. When I say what the, y'all say frack. What the? What the? When I say we won't, y'all say stop. We won't. We won't. When I say people, y'all say power. People. People. When I say people, y'all say power. People. People. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wow. Thank you to Kay Richardson and Angelita Kozad. Thank you to everybody tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and most importantly, share. Please share our stream. And big thank you to Xiuhtezcatl, who I learned has given Cut to the Chase permission to use some of his music videos, whatever they got going on. You should check him out. Definitely check him out. I can't remember how to spell Xiuhtezcatl's name, but you just got to look for X on Instagram. He's verified on Instagram, and he just brings it hardcore. Shout out to Hazel Bowden. Steve, thank you for always tuning in. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This is really a show that I've come to enjoy. Really, we're communicating with each other, and I'm able to give you an update. And sometimes we go in depth. And I've got quite a show for you tonight. We'll get to that in just a bit. This is May 26th, I believe it is, according to the Gregorian concept. Yes, May 26th, 2021. There was a lunar eclipse this morning, and so shout out to everyone who had a chance to take that in. The first time I saw not a solar eclipse, it rocked my world, just blew my mind. And I want to thank everybody for their generous support of our podcast. You can find Cut to the Chase podcast. Just search Cut to the Chase Iron Eyes. And then, of course, everybody here, such as Cindy and Robin, who have just tuned in for our live cast on Last Real Indians or LRI Media Facebook and La Kotala Facebook, my own personal or my public Facebook, as well as our YouTube channels. Please check us out there. We're only on Facebook and YouTube at this time with the service that we use, but we're looking for ways to infiltrate Twitter and even TikTok. Last Real Indians now has a TikTok. I don't think we have a MySpace yet, but we've got an Instagram. We probably don't have a Vine anymore. I think they're out now, but we did have. Well, no, we didn't form yet. But when High Five and Bebo were around, some of you may remember that we had a chance to connect then. Remember on MySpace when you could put your little favorite songs up at the top there. Anyhow, let me get to the show. Let me cut to the chase. I want to give you a sense of what we're going to cover tonight. The first item is a meeting, a gathering, a conference that I was able to attend of the Oceti Sakowin. And the world knows the Oceti Sakowin. And shout out to Ut from Berlin. Shout out to Marty from Alaska. That's what I love about this show. People tune in from all over the place, and thank you so much for doing that. We encourage you to share our stream because you're not going to hear this sort of news on any sort of mainstream outlet. Like this is the grassroots stream here. So we were gonna have Phil Two Eagle on tonight to talk about the Sioux convention, the Oceti Sakowin, but he was not able to join us. But no worries about that. It's kind of the same situation that we ran into with Bill Means, the legend Bill Means himself. We're looking forward to running it back with Phil and Bill, Phil and Bill, Phil Two Eagle and Bill Means. They're both staunch treaty advocates. And so we'll talk about that meeting and give you a recap of what happened there. And secondly, we'll be able to take a bit of a dive. And again, not many people know about the intricacies of Indian land title. Everybody by now has heard of the land back prophecy or the land back movement. But what it really means to be a federal Indian, an Indian that is recognized by the federal government and for whom a set of laws was devised in the Code of Federal Regulations. Shout out to Australia joining us. Shout out to the Puyallups who are joining us. Shout out to everybody. Lila Wopila Tanka Chichapalo, thank you so much for joining the stream and being able to catch it live. We're going to be able to talk to the Indian Landowner Party, and that is two gentlemen. We'll introduce them a bit later, but they joined us to start the dive into this enigma of Indian land title and how that presents challenges to Native people. It's not something that most people know about. So we're going to show you a clip from a session that we did with them. And if you want to catch the whole thing, you're just going to have to go to the podcast, Cut to the Chase, Iron Eyes again. And then after the Indian land title discussion, we have some breaking news, some news that has now caught the mainstream from the little website, the little media outlet that could, known as Last Real Indians. And shout out to Brother Matt and everybody up in the Pacific Northwest who continues to push, continues to make sure that not only can state governors, not only can they not ignore us, but they've got to deal with us on every level possible. And we'll show you some exclusive video that was part of a live stream from LRI Media. And I did not catch the gentleman's name that engaged in this peaceful disruption, we'll call it, but the things we have to do to get our voices heard. But we'll show you a bit on that. And then we've got to update you on a little bit of news, of course. We started this as a news show, but very quickly we recognized the benefit of going in depth with people from around indigenous country. And we certainly thank all of our guests who view the show, who share the show, and who've subscribed to our podcast, because it's through you that we get a lot of our people, a lot of our stories, a lot of the folks that come on to share what they're going through come right through you. And so I'm sure you've heard of Rick Santorum being fired by CNN, finally. And we've got people to thank there. We'll thank them when that segment comes around. Kristy Noem, I swear, we promised that we'd only cover Kristy Noem's shenanigans once a month, but it seems like every single week she's doing, and she's the governor of South Dakota. If any of you who are living in indigenous territories that also have these kind of governors that espouse a violent or maybe willfully ignorant settler colonial mentality and really are able to make hay, they're able to create political careers out of Indian fighting. We want to hear from you wherever you're at. If you're having trouble, just like in Seattle with Washington State's Governor Inslee, and I see some of our viewers have some choice words for Mr. Inslee because of the stunt that he pulled, and we'll get to that in just a bit. But let me, first of all, again, just say thank you to everyone tuning in. Thank you for sharing the stream. Thank you for linking with our podcast. I want to jump right into the Och- oh my goodness, how did that make it onto the screen? Some choice words for Governor Inslee. He should know that Indian country is watching, that indigenous people will not be ignored. No longer can you just push the indigenous voice to the side and expect to get away with it. It looks like Alaska also is trying to recall their governor. But let me talk a little bit about the Oceti Sakowin gathering. Really, it was a breath of fresh air. There was probably 100 people who were able to come together, and people I know are missing the ability just to be around each other. Indigenous peoples are really relational type of folks. I mean, we've got to be together. Not only is it like a small universe, but where everybody kind of knows everybody. There's not that many degrees of separation, but just to be in the same space as each other, be able to shake each other's hands, give each other hugs, to smudge. I mean, the majority of Indian country is vaccinated right now, and I know that you know Native people are the last people that you'd expect to be like, yeah, let's get the government vaccine. But we have suffered irreparable damage. We've lost lives, we've lost elders to this deadly virus. So I encourage you to make that choice on your own. I got vaccinated, our family got vaccinated. It's the right thing to do, in my personal opinion. You all can make your own decision on that matter. But it was just it allowed the Oceti Sakowin to meet again. It allowed our people and our elders to feel safe coming together. And I know that everybody in the powwow circle, everybody in the ceremony circle has been real apprehensive. We've been looking over our shoulder, wondering if it's safe. I know the ceremony circles that I'm involved in, and shout out to Bear Cross. He's probably listening out there somewhere, but he gives me a ring every now and then. And we all have different spiritual teachers, and they're all part of the same movement, the same movement toward spiritual liberation. So I respect all of our teachers, whether it's on the Pacific coast or the Atlantic coast, the Gulf Coast, way up in Unchi Maka Tamakoche, grandmother's land, what is now called Canada, which the Oceti Sakowin is in what is now known as Canada. These borders crossed us. And so anyhow, this is a long way of saying it was really, really good. I'm so encouraged to see the Oceti Sakowin coming together to address paramount concerns. And those concerns include the return of the Black Hills. They include returning the sacred. They include fulfilling the land back prophecy, not just for the Oceti or the Sioux people and the Black Hills, but for everybody down in Oak Flat, everybody at Bears Ears, everybody at 1492 Landback Lane, the Ramapo brothers and sisters. I need to get their leader. I can't remember the brother's name, but I met him. And all across Turtle Island, we're engaged in these struggles where we have to like put ourselves on the line just to have our voices heard. Just like the Trans Mountain Pipeline is trying to go through Secwepemc territory. I just found out that Kanahus and Mayuk Manuel have been found guilty of some trumped up charges there, and they are asserting a whole nother set of rights that I need to get Kanahus and or Mayuk on the show to talk about the intricacies of their struggle. But for the time being, you can find them at Tiny House Warriors. But let me go right back to the Oceti, because we were on site. We were able to pull media duties for Phil Two Eagle of the Sichangu Treaty Council, the Rosebud Treaty Council. And a lot of you from Standing Rock, from Oceti, remember the Rosebud Camp that was just on the south side of the Cannonball River. Well, that's That's the place, that is the tribal government, the tribal government that sponsors this particular treaty council. And so I want to be able to show you some of the video from that day. It's very short, but check it out. And we were able to put this together, and it's an honor really to be there and to bear witness to what you're about to see.
Aho, wopila wakia luta chachaga. Oh here. Oh I can't chante waste yuha yahunim kena wopila lo. I see a lot of good leaders, tribal leaders and spiritual leaders out here, so it's a good turnout, and we're gonna have a good meeting here. I feel we might be able to get some things done that have been plaguing our nation for a long time. I want to say a few words about the Oceti Sakowin, because our future generations are needing this to happen for them to have a way of life and a territory to make their pursuit of happiness is what we want to do, okay? The pursuit of happiness, we have that right to do that. And so any avenue we take to do that is up to us, the people. We are the people of the Oceti Sakowin.
Our goal is unity for the Oceti Sakowin. This is a time that we put our differences aside. I know over the years that I've been listening to our grandfathers about full blood and half-breed and treaty signer and non-treaty signer, chief, descendant of chief, the animosity towards the IRA, things like that. But this is a time to think things over.
Oceti Sakowin is the beginning, and I really enjoyed.
Well, we had to. We seem to have been having some technical difficulties. The video might have been lagging, and we do apologize if that was the case. We will show more of that conference. We have 16 hours of footage, and so our team, the mighty control team, was able to cut up about a 4-minute section of that. But it shows Ivan Looking Horse. That's who you saw in the beginning. Okay, it appears that people were able to hear it. They just couldn't see the rolling video. So Ivan Looking Horse was the Eapaha. Phil Two Eagle was the primary organizer and sponsor through the Rosebud Sioux tribe. Wendell Yellow Bull, who you just now were beginning to hear him speak. He is a county commissioner on the Pine Ridge Reservation. He's also the keeper of the pipe of Chief Red Cloud, and the same Red Cloud for which the Red Cloud's War is named. And so Bill Means was on site. Rick Two Dogs from the Knife Chief Buffalo Nation Society was also in the video, but we were not able to get the video to play, and so we apologize for that. But the audio will certainly all be on our podcast as soon as we're done with the show tonight. So we want to move on from that video. But it was just amazing to be there, and it's called Oceti Sakowin. That's what we call ourselves. The world called us Sioux, and it's kind of like a boy named Sioux from Johnny Cash. That name is a slur. It wasn't designed by us, and yes, it does mean snake, and it was apparently given a name given to us by our Anishinaabe oppressors. I'm just kidding. Our Anishinaabe brothers and sisters. And yeah, we kind of, we went through a challenging time where we kind of oppressed each other, not just the Anishinaabe, but all the peoples that the Lakota encountered, except the Cheyenne and the Arapaho. And so, fortunately, um, you know, times have passed, and we're now able to see that no matter which side we were on, we all inherited the same places of confinement, the same political, legal, and economic oppression. So now it's more important that we build bridges to each other, that we recreate some of these traditional alliances, because back then we obviously, to our detriment, could not see past the very intra-tribal divisions. We just could not unite to save our lives or our land from the destruction of the colonizer. I mean, Tecumseh was trying to do this a long time ago, and unfortunately, I mean, even within the Lakota band itself, you would think we could achieve some unification, and that's what this Oceti Sakowin meeting was about, to sort of put forth the idea that it's time to stop hating on each other. It's time to stop doing the work of the colonizer. I mean, to this day, the crab in the bucket syndrome is still holding us back. In fact, it kind of got worse. I mean, the reservation system, the Okashke system, the system of confinement, exacerbated whatever sort of jealousy or competitive nature that we might have had toward each other. It's way past time that we get beyond that. And so I just wanted to reiterate, that was the calling of that meeting, was that we need to reach into the core of our indigenous nature, and that we need to remember who we are, remember what we are, and that we do our best to come together. Otherwise, we're going to continue to occupy this space where, the colonizers are seeking us out to be their spirit animal. And we no longer are in that day and age where we've got to do things like that. We can be our own spirit animal. Maybe that's a little bit inappropriate, but you get the idea. We have to stick to what gives us strength, what allows us to survive, what has empowered us to survive all methods and all manners of shackling us, of erasing us. And, I just we have to achieve that. And this meeting, this Oceti Sakowin meeting, certainly gave me that sense of encouragement. And yes, we're talking about the Black Hills being returned to not only the Lakota people, but the Cheyenne and the Arapaho. And we know that it's not just the Black Hills, that this entire country was stolen by settlers whose violence, genocide, and racism still pervade the ranks of their leading think tanks, their leading organizations like American Stewards of Liberty, or ALEC, or CPAC, or the KKK. I mean, the list goes on, and we know that the Black Hills represents 7 million acres. And we also know that the Black Hills contain sacred sites like Peshla, like Bear Butte, like Mato Tipila, Mato Paha. It includes 7 million acres of federal land, and the Lakota Nation and Senator Bill Bradley devised a plan to return 1.3 million of those acres, the federal acres in the Black Hills, not private land, not the state parks, although we think that the state park should come with that. But the settlement didn't include that. And it's time that we as a people gather to reclaim our stolen lands. And I know that this is possible. The political climate in Washington, D.C. is much, much different than the political climate where the Sioux Nation is located, where you have a state park named after Custer, named to honor this settler abomination known for butchering women and children. Yet the settlers around here rally around him and lift him up, not only at Custer State Park, but Custer County, Custer Elementary School. I mean, Custer this, Custer that. We defeated Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn, and we are still being punished for that. And again, those were different times. If we could see then what we are living through today, we would know better, and we would certainly try to unite in every and any conceivable way. But the gathering, I just want to give some closing thoughts on it. It represented the confluence of traditional leadership, that is, that leadership and that source of sovereignty that existed before the colonizer got here, before the colonizer stumbled into our homelands, before my quadruple great grandfather confronted Lewis and Clark. We had a system of governance. Now, the United States as a colonial apparatus basically banana republiced us. They came here in 1934 and even before that, and would only allow upward mobility or leadership recognition of those who agreed to assimilate, those who agreed to turn their backs on our original sources of dignity, spiritual strength, and sovereignty. And that is the birth of the Indian Reorganization Act. That's why in the video, they talk about this rift that exists between those tribal governments, which were set up in 1934, like banana republics, as a vehicle to continue the expropriation of Indian land. Hence was born the constitutions of all the 1889 reservation names, like the Oglala Sioux Tribe or the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, the Rosebud Sioux Tribe, Cheyenne River, and all on down the line. It hasn't been that long that we have been referring to ourselves and knowing ourselves in a way that was designed by the colonizer. So, and lastly, besides from land back at the Oceti conference, renegotiating the quote-unquote trust responsibility, creating a whole new way of relating to each other was extremely paramount. It's also called a federal trust relationship, but that trust is long past broken. I mean, old colonizer hath stabbed us in the back far too many times for the word trust or trustee or beneficiary to be anywhere near describing what our relationship has been. I mean, it's been nothing but exploitative, and we have to continue. Yes, Deb Haaland was a success. The first Indigenous Secretary of Interior was a success, but the time for celebrating is done. We have to go after whoever is in these posts, whether whoever's in the White House, doesn't matter what team they play for, what color their political party is, doesn't matter what color their political party is in Congress or in the Senate. We, Indigenous peoples, and all of our allies, who I believe are the majority of this country, need to push land back. We need not only to reclaim our sacred sites that are in federal control, but those for which they deny federal protection. I mean, Indigenous sovereignty it's even in Hawaii. The native Hawaiians are in a fight for their lives all the time. And it's not since Senator Daniel Inouye held office that we've been able to have that kind of exchange, that kind of discourse and recognition on the Senate floor or wherever else. So the sacred sites in Deb Haaland's control, we must figure out a way. That is the lowest hanging fruit. That is, that which our dearly beloved Secretary of the Interior could manage, could change the relationship with tribal nations with the stroke of her pen, and including all the other areas that Madam Secretary has jurisdiction of, and that is 75 million acres. I mean, we have to be talking about not only a return of those sacred sites and of land, but co-stewardship models. I mean, if you come to the Black Hills, I'm sure it's like that for wherever you're tuning in from. Your sacred lands are now the tourist destinations for American people and people around the globe. And we don't even have a cultural exchange model or a co-management, a co-stewardship model like the White Mountain Apache have, so that we can be in charge of the narrative, so we can stop the colonial lies that are being told through the Department of Interior and all the National Park Service, the USDA, everyone else who tells only the colonial version of our story together. I mean, that has to change, or it's going to be, again, it's going to be feathers and leathers and entertainment, and all I'm saying is maybe that's where I come in. Put me in those feathers and leathers with my hair all flowing, and I'll start playing a flute, cue the smoke machine. You know what I'm saying? The tourist will be compelled to be on our side so that we can finally get our land back. But I just wanted to spend that much going into depth about the Oceti Sakowin meeting. And I do apologize for the video not being able to play. We might try it again at the end of this session, but it was, you heard enough of it. And I want to now transition from the Oceti Sakowin to an advisor. I call them brothers, but he's much older than me, so he's more like a Lekshi. He's more like an advisor, a mentor. But his name is Rick Beckwith, I believe his name is. And so he is from the Quinault Nation, and Thomas Birdbear is from the MHA Nation, maybe amongst other nations. But they are both part of something called the Indian Landowners Party. And I know that, to think of Terry Beckwith, that's his name, Terry Beckwith from the Quinault Nation. The Indian Landowners Party, please find them on Facebook, because they are in the thick of an education campaign. I mean, in order to understand Indian land and Indian land title, trust title, Indian beneficiary, allotted land, trustee, I mean, that's a lot. And so this show, not by any accident, is able to access these very intricate parts of Indian country. I mean, this really requires a dive into the doctrine of discovery and an exploration of the current colonial paternalism that is lorded over us through the Department of Interior and the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and how that impacts the individual indigenous person. But there are rights, and we need to know our rights. There are land rights, and yes, these are rights that were created by the colonial apparatus, but we are able to view ourselves through the lens of the foreigner, which is crazy to think about. That wasn't our choice, but we learned this language, and we now know everything that the English thinking universe knows, and we still emerged intact with what we are. And so I want to play a bit of this interview, this session that I was able to have with the Indian Landowners Party. Again, you're going to have to listen to the podcast to hear the whole version, because this is going to be a deep dive. But Control, if we could bring up the Indian Landowners Party interview, stick with us. We'll come pop back out the side of this in about 13, 14 minutes. If you want to hear the full 40-minute session, or maybe it was 50 minutes, it will be a standalone podcast. So please go there and subscribe. I would just like you both kind of to take the opportunity to introduce yourself and how you got involved in Indian land work. And I know that's put an asterisk by that, because that's subject to interpretation. But it's an interesting topic, and I'm glad to be joined by you guys to guide us in the discussion.
Glad to be here. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Well, my name's Terry Beckwith, and I'm Quinault, and I'm also a landowner on the Quinault Reservation and Chehalis Reservation. Graduated from Haskell Institute many years ago. In my whole career, I worked on in land issues, either with the administrative law judge or BIA, and retired in 1998. And we started ICC Indian Enterprises teaching classes on allotments and tribal lands, and then 6 years ago we started a group called Indian Landowners Party, and that was to get the information out to landowners as to what all's going on and what they need to do to protect their land, to maximize their income. And then we started making an effort to bring in a lot more people, and we turned Indian Landowners Party back around March 6th, I think it was, into a think tank for advocacy for the landowners. And we got a lot of people involved. We went over 5,000 as of last Saturday. And we teach lands, anything to do with Indian lands. Anyway, that's a little bit about me.
I'm Thomas Birdbear. I'm a member of 3 affiliated tribes, and in North Dakota. It's in North Dakota. The Fort Berthold Reservation is there. I went to work for the federal government, and I did work in Indian probate for the Office of Hearings and Appeals. That was very landowner specific work because it dealt with transitioning the title, the beneficiary Indian title, from the previous owner, the decedent, to the next generation. So that's what I did at OHA. And then after that, I worked for Office of the Special Trustee. During that time, there was a class that was developed on the Indian trust responsibility. And I ended up teaching that course with many other folks, mainly from people from trust records, people from different areas of the trust responsibilities within DOI. And the audience was DOI employees, but also landowners, tribal employees as well. And how I really got into this was more specific, becoming a member of Terry's group, the Indian Landowners Party, but just as a landowner, and with the work that I've done, and seeing the need out there for better services for landowners who are also typically IAM account beneficiaries. So this is where we see this whole progression, starting with the whole history of Indian affairs involving landowners. And we're going to go back to the treaty times, to allotment, through IRA, all the way up to the present. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And that's an overview of what the reports are going to show, and what I wanted to visit about.
Yes, I can. You know what? If we let you keep going, once you start talking about Indian land, this is a deep subject. I'm like an amateur historian, so I know that the Dawes Allotment Act was in 1887. The United States Homesteading Act was 1862, I believe. And so and then we were confronted as a lawyer. I know that our country, this society, this population values and holds sacred the right of private property. Now that is I mean, we always had the concept of private property and intellectual property. That's somewhat of a myth. We knew exactly where each other's hunting spots were at, where each other was farming, where you might have been collecting shellfish or spearfishing, or where you were able to fish. We knew exactly where each other was supposed to be. But if one of you want to talk about some of the issues that you're encountering in Indian land title, that would be beneficial for our audience.
Okay, one of the big issues today is trespass, and we have a lot of issues, but we have a trespass is spiraling out of control, and we have trespasses all over the country, every reservation, and it's frustrating because people don't know what to do with the trespass. I've worked in this field of realty for over 40 years, so actually since 1973. In 1972, we had a trespasser on our property, and so we're 49 years into a trespass case on an allotment I own on the Xiuhtezcatl reservation, and it's been, in my family, the trespass has gone on for 3 generations. And this man, his name's Hillstrom, he's got a house on our property. He's got 2 barns that are halfway on our property. He's got a road on our property. And we've tried to get him removed from the property way back in, going back to 1972. He's challenged us in court. He's challenged the survey. We've been to Indian Board of Land Appeals. We won there. And we've been in the Xiuhtezcatl Tribal Court. He's still on the property. And this sounds like it's something that might be unique, but it's not. It's happening all over. And a lot of people don't even notify the BIA of trespass because nothing happens. And you know, it's not always the BIA's fault. I think there's things that can be done, but I just think of what happened up at Fort Berthold with the Tesoro pipeline, and the regional director up there, Tim Lapointe, he hit him with a bill for collection of $187 million. And what that tells me is that should have been a lawsuit that was filed, but there wasn't a lawsuit filed. So why wasn't the lawsuit filed? Well, my guess is Lapointe tried to take this to the solicitor's office and get them to do something. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. They would have gone to the U.S. Attorney's Office, but somebody dropped the ball along the way. So what he did was he sent a bill for collection. He did what he felt like he had to do. And that's what you have to do in realties. You have to get creative.
The United States codified federal laws, the Code of Federal Regulations, provides for a system of Indian land title. And some of our listeners are familiar with terms like trustee, trust beneficiary, allotment, Indian allotment, Indian account owner, and so forth. And just to look at it from 10,000 feet, the United States holds this land in trust for the benefit of those who are recognized as Indians. And so that means that the private native person has land rights that are different from the tribal government rights. Now, when Terry was talking about Tesoro, I think you're referencing an oil spill. And is that an oil spill, or why was Tesoro going to be fined $187 million?
No, actually, that was trespass damages that were calculated by the regional director for the BIA. And that was for past trespass that had already occurred. And it was an existing pipeline operator at Fort Berthold that had basically not renewed. and so the issue went to the IBIA, Interior Board of Indian Appeals, and then the last Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs during the last administration sort of plucked it out of that process and decided the matter. And after the election now, though, the new Assistant Secretary's office has basically sent the matter back to the regional office to issue a new decision, a new determination. Yeah.
I see. Okay, so that was for Tesoro Pipeline having, probably they were permitted at first to build this pipeline, but then the lease ran out and they just never renewed. So but their pipeline is still there and they're still benefiting, in a multi-million-dollar fashion. They just never paid their bill. And so, because that seemed like a huge bill. The fact that Terry and Thomas and others are continuing to organize Indian landowners is a very strong tool. And it's one that I believe Deb Haaland, President Biden, anybody in that federal Indian legal relationship, what they like to call a trust relationship. But I mean, trust is about the furthest thing that relationship has been. So I'm encouraged to hear about that work. Now, Thomas, if there are there's other issues. I know JTAC. I mean, we're also a JTAC tribe, and I mean, if you want to talk about that, or if there's other issues you want to address, feel welcome.
Yes, thank you. Overall, you mentioned the 10,000 feet view, the view from 10,000 feet. The reports that we've really keyed in on, and this started a couple months back, and it was all this part of this effort on taking control of Indian lands, and it was a presentation that Indian Landowners Party put on, and Terry asked me to participate. The more we researched the issue of what's going on today with Indian land and Alati lands, we started to find this history of how the lands have been, first of all, allotted, second of all, treated by the feds, basically as policy decisions. So someone in Washington, D.C. has a policy decision, and all of the allotment owners, their lives are turned upside down, basically. And this was from a writing, the first report was by Russell Barsh. It's called An Economic Analysis of Indian Trust Allotments, Indian Resources and the National Economy, written in 1988. By the way, these reports that I'm referring to, we've collected them, and they're maintained on the Indian Landowners Party Facebook page. And if we are living at the whims of policy decision makers in DC, we're all on the Truman Show, and we don't even realize it.
You know what?
And when you look at these land decisions that were policy decisions and they uprooted lives, it's humongous. It's huge. It's huge stuff. And when you look at how we compare to South Africa, really we're talking about freedom. Mm-hmm. The whole freedom issue for lands and freedom to live on those lands, to make decisions about what happens on those lands. And we don't have it right now in this country. So imagine that, United States of America. And there's what I don't know the number of official account holders, but hundreds of thousands of citizens that are being denied those rights that other Americans have.
Well, gentlemen, we'll end there for this segment.
All right.
Thank you, Chase.
Well,
enjoyed it.
thanks, Chase, for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out, man. I appreciate it. We'll be in touch again. Yeah, we had to. Oh, here we go. We definitely we do apologize to Mr. Beckwith and Mr. Birdbear, the Indian Landowners Party. Please find them. Sometimes we try to do all we can in an hour, and we get a lot done in an hour, and sometimes we got to push it to 90 minutes. I saw Joletta Birdbear saying that what we need is a session with the Department of Interior that is led by those most closely impacted by this system that is designed by the federal government, this Indian land ownership system. You can see that it is creating challenges. And I know other people are tuning in, like Mr. Telly Plume. I want to give a shout out to Telly Plume, everybody who has done what we're trying to do. These people are like what they're advisors. That's the word is wakichuze, but somebody who can kind of tell you from their experience, what they went through. And he's tagging a legend named Daryl Eaglestaff. So I just want to give a shout out to the people who are listening from Alaska, from the West Coast to the Atlantic coast, down in Florida, Scotland. We always have listeners from Scotland and Ireland. And that tells you something. that tells you that people who have been occupied by the colonizer know exactly and know exactly how we feel. They see us, and that is extremely important. And so I just wanted to if you want to hear the rest of that discussion, which you should, on Indian land title, follow the Indian Landowners Party. Actually, Telly Plume is how I heard of Terry Beckwith, and the Indian Landowners Party. This was maybe a year ago or something. I don't really remember, but it's such an honor to have these elders come onto the show, break it down for us, and to hear the rest of that, you've got to go to our podcast. We dropped it in the link there. Just search for Cut to the Chase Iron Eyes. And I do appreciate you guys tuning in, because this is heavy, heavy stuff. I mean, this is stuff that I had to pay $100,000 and some $1,000 for and go to law school to pick all this stuff up. But we're going to give it all to you special listeners and viewers for free. Well, if you want to subscribe to the podcast and break off a little 5 spot, what you might pay for a coffee or a latte, not from Starbucks, but from wherever you get it, but not from Starbucks, we would appreciate that. But let me pivot to the Pacific Northwest. And for this, you might have caught the live stream. I just had one of the founders, one of the principals, text me the name of the guy who is an organizer of Protectors of the Salish Sea. I know that organization on Facebook. You can find Protectors of the Salish Sea. And so his name is Paul Wagner, and he's Saanich and Lummi. Paul Wagner from Protectors of the Salish Sea. How's that for real-time updates from Brother Matt Remley up there in Seattle, and everybody that makes it happen there? You might have seen a live stream that was shared on Last Real Indians. And I know, yes, I've heard enough about the word Indian and how it's not correct. It's inaccurate, just like the word Sioux. But, we designed that in a very deliberate and cheeky way. So Indian may be getting canceled. I don't know. Everything's politically correct these days. I might just go join the Trump crazies in the radical right. Just kidding about that. We're gonna destroy those guys. But they're kind of lamenting and crying around about us canceling their racist colonial culture. I mean, there's no more Speedy Gonzalez, no more Little Black Sambo, no more Aunt Jemima, no more Indian mascots. I mean, the list is growing. We were able to get Rick Santorum fired from CNN for making those grotesquely and willful ignorance is what it is. I mean, all these guys are sitting around wondering what their life is going to be like now that they can't be obnoxiously and overtly loud racists. But anyways, let me get back to the Pacific Northwest and what went on there. If you caught the live stream, you would have seen Paul Wagner live on Last Real Indians, making his way into a bill signing press event that the Washington State Governor Inslee, was hosting. And you have to remember, in Washington State, there's 29 tribal nations who now find themselves surrounded by Washington State. But they had been in negotiations with the governor for some time, and Governor Inslee had led the tribes to believe that he was gonna make some very gracious concessions to the tribal governments, and it had to do with climate commitments, climate change, and the ability and the duty for the state of Washington to include Washington tribal governments in their processes. And it's sad that it happens this way, but he waited until the day of this signing to veto those portions that had been negotiated by the tribal governments that are now located in and around Washington state. And it's just, I can't even believe it happens like this. But I do want to show you this video as a teaser, because next week we are going to have a special guest to go further in depth on this. But you've got to see this sometimes. And you know, Last Real Indians deserves a lot of credit for this. Sometimes all independent media deserves credit. I'm thinking of, you know, Unicorn Riot, all of the resistance camps, everybody who's just 2KC media, everybody who's just is trying their best to make sure they cannot be ignored. We have to lift each other up, and that's what this is about. But LRI was able to break a story, and I just want to show you a little small snippet of that video where Paul Wagner, again, find Protectors of the Salish Sea. Please find it on Facebook. Like them, share them, hook up with them, link with them, because they're doing great work. Control, if we could roll in that video, please.
Jay Inslee's lack of commitment to consultation, to the lack of his protection that would be inside of that bill, the Climate Commitment Act. So he has said that our sacred sites don't matter, that our places where our ancestors are, their bones are, where our families lay, those are the people that brought us here. Those are the people that birthed us and gave us our cultures.
And what Governor Inslee did here today is he informed the tribes of Washington State that after all this work and support they gave him, he was going to veto protections for sacred sites, cultural sites, archaeological sites. He was going to remove that very important language on consultation and consent out of this bill. And this is what we deal with, even amongst the so-called Democrats. Really no different when it comes to some of these issues. So State Patrol came and threw us out, but thank you, Brother Paul, everybody else. That's happening here today, Shoreline College. Don't veto sacred sites.
House Bill 1050.
Protect
This
sacred
bill
sites.
is a bill that builds on the federal and state.
You're stabbing tribes in the back.
To significantly reduce our emissions. Sir.
Don't veto culture rights.
Why would you veto?
Listen, I need to sign some bills. I'll be signing some bills.
Are you lost? Are you lost like Columbus?
Gentlemen, we heard you.
Jay Inslee.
We heard you. Now it's time to sign some bills, okay? It's just kind of, I'll talk to you on the lobby here. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to show you a little bit of that video, and thank you to Christine Towner, who provided the link to Protectors of the Salish Sea. That is Paul Wagner in that video, and I want to encourage everybody, you know, just like what are they called, braided warriors, to let your voice be heard. Paul Wagner has our utmost respect and support, and we look forward to covering this story again. I just wanted to show it to you, let you know what it is, and a week from today we'll be speaking about it again, because it's unconscionable. I cannot believe that this governor negotiated certain provisions that were supposed to be in this climate bill, and he gets to the signing and then vetoes those positions out, those negotiated positions. So I just wanted to show you that, and I want to thank you all for sharing that, linking with their page, again, Protectors of the Salish Sea. Now, let me again, I know I told you that we would not cover Kristy Noem, but she's always doing something. I mean, I guess we're just going to have to play that by ear. And just recently, she held a governor's round dance, and we had some of our cohorts on the ground, that is Uniting Resilience, Muffy Musso and Felipa De Leon, as well as 2KC Media, that is Oscar High Elk et al., and 7th Defenders, that is Jacelyn Charger. And if you remember, Jacelyn and Oscar are still facing criminal charges from Hacken County, which is right next to the site of the governor's round dance. But we do have a short video to show you, and then we'll wrap up the show, and we're going to try one more time to show you that Oceti Sakowin video. It's only 4 minutes long, and we just have mad respect for the treaty councils that put that together. So anyhow, without further ado, Control, if we could roll that video from Governor Noem's round dance, that would be appreciated.
My family and I have attended tribal celebrations in so many of our communities throughout South Dakota. It's a tremendous honor to host one here today. A foundational part of South Dakota's history. It's important that our students learn our true history.
We are here today in so-called pure South Dakota, Oceti Sakowin, Turtle Island, at so-called Governor Kristy Noem's powwow intended to fool the people. Kristy Noem is a trickster weaving her web of deceit. She is not a friend of the tribes. She uses lies to play the people. She uses lies to prey on the people in the land.
He does not represent me. He does not represent my wife. We do not allow her to have any kind of respect from us because she has killed our relatives through the COVID pandemic. She has left the state open. She's challenging Deb Haaland.
We came here to let Kristy Noem know that we're not going to take it no more. It's done. We teach our youth to be Lakota first, not to dance for the governor, for the Washichus. That's all I got.
Wow. So everybody in the comments does not mind if we go in hard on Governor Kristy Noem. As you know, the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe joined the lawsuit, or they intervened actually, because Kristy Noem sued Deb Haaland in order to force the fireworks show in the black. Wait, show that breechcloth again, Control, please. I don't know. You know what I mean? Somebody told me to take Kristy Noem to the trash. It's just that it happens so often that she never leaves the trash. But in her defense, who else could pull off a shawl, black leather, beaded accent, fringe breechcloth with alligator skin boots without the fur? I don't know who else could pull that off, but Godspeed, Kristy Noem, in your quest, in your pursuit to have a fireworks show, so much so that you're willing to spend South Dakota's resources to try to force this fireworks show onto this state. I mean, Kristy Noem doesn't respect trans lives. She's got no love for the LGBTQ plus community. She does everything in her power to inhibit that respect and evolution. She did everything in her power to try to build the KXL pipeline, but she got Z'd. She did everything in her power to criminalize those who wish to exercise constitutional, natural, and treaty rights with her riot-boosting legislation, which also failed. She talks about we need to learn our true history. She's talking about 1776 Commission history, the ones that deny slavery, that do not want critical race theory being taught in our schools. In other words, they want to continue the colonial brainwashing of not only our children, but their children. Not only that, but word on the street is that Kristy Noem claims to be part Native. And I don't know which part of her is Native or who might have adopted her as a relative, but we need to dehunka Kristy Noem, as far as I'm concerned. And you know what? The fact that some of our tribal governments were there to play the diplomat, to play the devil's advocate, and say, you know, somebody's got to reach across the aisle. Kristy Noem is an Indian fighter. There is a litany of things. That's why, again, here we go again. We really got to do this like once a month. Kristy Noem is only going to be having once a month cameos on our show. But we as long as you guys are supporting and recognizing exactly why we do this, because she is a danger. Her colonial culture is a threat to our lives. There is colonial violence in our cities, in every border town, across this country. That kind of violent settler mentality is a danger to our children. So we're not taking out the trash with her this week. She's steady, staying in the trash like Oscar the Grouch. Control, can we see that breechcloth one more time? Okay, that's oh my goodness. I don't know. I'm going to have to rock something like that one day, maybe with a ribbon shirt or something. But okay, we're going to dispense with this. I want to close the session talking about Rick Santorum. A lot of you remember this guy. We did take out the trash on him because he completely denied that indigenous people exist. He said before America, there was nothing here, let alone that we are responsible for 75% of all the food that every single human being consumes on this planet. Never mind that we saved this country's ass with our code talkers in Dene country, in Lakota country, all over this continent. We saved this country multiple times, and it's important that they get with the program. I'm happy and encouraged that Illuminative, Indian Collective, go follow Illuminative and Indian Collective to find out who else was involved in getting Rick Santorum removed, because agency does matter. Representation matters. The Indian mascots, they're going the way of the dinosaur. The damage that Hollywood has been able to do to us and our agency in the way that we are portrayed is slowly being dismantled. All the educational institutions are being forced, they're being dragged, kicking and screaming into this century. Our century, the new indigenous millennium. Look at the work that Ruth Buffalo, Billy Joe B. Healer, and others did with Senate Bill 2304 in North Dakota. And I'd encourage you also to go to Buffalo's Fire. They've got good stories running about the deconstruction of colonial brainwashing in our educational systems. That's the same thing Kristy Noem wants to promote. So finally, yes, Rick Santorum has been taken out. He is in the trash. And Control, if you have that video, you're more than welcome to roll that through. But we are now able to view ourselves through the lens of the foreigner. Think about that. That is a very strange thing. And to our non-Indigenous allies who are listening, you are also viewing yourself through the lens of a colonial foreigner. What happened to us also happened in Europe. And we're now able to do what Sitting Bull advised us to do, which is to pick up what's good in that road, if there's anything, maybe Wi-Fi and data, and leave what's bad. And there is a lot of bad. Should we resurrect Rick from the trash? I don't know. Him and Kristy Noem are side by side in the trash can. They're keeping Oscar the Grouch company. Yeah, let's show a video of taking out the trash real quick, just to give him proper respects. I want to play this clip that many of you have seen about Rick Santorum.
We came here and created a blank slate. We birthed a nation. from nothing. I mean, there's nothing here. I mean, yes, we have Native Americans, but candidly, that there isn't much Native American culture in American culture. It was born of the people who came here.
So when Santorum says that you have the Native American, I can't get enough of that video, just like I can't get enough of Kristy Noem's breechcloth. And that came out wrong. Let's redact that. Let's dispense with Kristy Noem's breechcloth, but I don't know who else could pull that off. And, you know, I also send a word of encouragement to Chairman Mike Faith, Brother Frankie J, everybody who was there from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, from Sisseton, from Crow Creek, I believe. You know, we are not a monolith. And I do understand somebody's got to play the diplomat, but Kristy Noem is a known Indian fighter in the spirit of William Janklow. You know what I mean? Like we're dealing with people who are threatening our right to live the way that creation intended us to live, in the lands that creation intended us to make our homes. And I do have one item that we begin the show, and thank you so much, guys, for sharing. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for liking. We read the comments, believe that. And so even if you're here to call me out about how natives shouldn't be talking about Palestine or Israel, I mean, look at what Mark Ruffalo had to do. Bernie Sanders started half-stepping. Next thing you know, Mark Ruffalo is backtracking his comments. And I don't say that as a jab at Mark Ruffalo, because everyone knows he's Indian country's uncle. But it is very real. If you speak out criticizing Israel, somebody will be coming to try to discredit you. Somebody will be coming to dox you. We take a risk out here. And why is it like that? I mean, what is happening there is clearly wrong. Go follow me on Twitter. At Chase Iron Eyes on Twitter. You can read my latest thoughts on what's happening in Israel in the form of tweets. But we started the show with covering the historic gathering of the Oceti Sakowin. And we do have a 4-minute video. I'd like to end with that, and then we'll close the show out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying tuned. If we could roll that video, Control, let's give it a shot.
Ahu, wopila wakia luta chachaga. Oh here. Hoya ake chante waste yuha yahunim kena wopila lo. I see a lot of good leaders, tribal leaders and spiritual leaders out here, so it's a good turnout, and we're gonna have a good meeting here. I feel we might be able to get some things done that have been plaguing our nation for a long time. I want to say a few words about the Oceti Sakowin, because our future generations are needing this to happen for them to have a way of life and a territory to make their pursuit of happiness is what we want to do, okay? The pursuit of happiness, we have that right to do that. And so any avenue we take to do that is up to us, the people. We are the people of the Oceti Sakowin.
Our goal is unity for the Oceti Sakowin. This is a time that we put our differences aside. I know over the years that I've been listening to our grandfathers about full blood and half-breed and treaty signer and non-treaty signer, chief, descendant of chief, the animosity towards the IRA, things like that. But this is a time to think things over.
Xiuhtezcatl is the beginning, and I really enjoyed the vision that Phil has continued to bring forth, and the ideology of unity. Unity, in a sense, for me, is a different perception, is that one, we need to unify in the issues that affect our lives daily. The Xiuhtezcatl unity is where each and every one of the Nachas go home and try to bring their families together as one, and delegate each and every one family member a position and title within the Xiuhtezcatl system governance. To come together as one, as the spokesperson here, relaying the information to your Xiuhtezcatl and your TYs that this is what is going on. And the first issue that could be and should be foremost is that the first issue of consensus and agreement is that the Black Hills are not for sale.
Our grandfathers signed a treaty on the sacred pipe, and we never broke that promise. He held on to our promise. We never broke it. But the Washichu broke their promise, and when we set up the treaty land boundaries, they still came in and took our land. They took the minerals, they took the trees, and now they're all around us without regard to that treaty that is to us we held sacred. So they broke that treaty, and they're still breaking it today. Any land sale in this Black Hills today that's happening is all illegal. Any kind of development is all illegal.
There it is. That was the segment that we've developed so far. And remember that we have 16 hours of that meeting. But I just want to thank not only Rick Two Dogs, Dickie Moves Camp, Grandpa Leonard Crow Dog. I understand that people are holding ceremony for Leonard, so Crow Dog. So I'd ask for everybody to keep those spiritual interpreters in your thoughts. I also want to thank those other gentlemen and the women. Faith Spotted Eagle was also on hand. And all of that video is courtesy of Sichangu Treaty Council and Phil Two Eagle. Now, I do want to address a couple of things that have come up in the comment sections, because we have a right to talk about Holocaust. The Jewish community does not have the exclusive on the word Holocaust, because I have been critical and have been truth-seeking and trying to find out exactly what is going on in Israel, Palestine. I have been criticized for using the word Holocaust. Yes, it's a bad thing. It is a horror of our immediate history that 6 million Jewish people were genocided. But genocide and Holocaust also applies to the indigenous Americas, where we not only lost 100 million people, but that Holocaust and genocide is still being executed against us. The Holocaust and genocide applies to the Afro-Indigenous people of the continent of Africa. And to me, it doesn't matter if the Jews or the Arabs were in Israel, Palestine first. It doesn't matter to me who was there first. We cannot fall into this line of reasoning that says, because I'm critiquing the Zionists, I'm anti-Semitic. Nobody wants anti-Semitic rhetoric or practices to take place anywhere. Nobody wants the Jewish people to be without a country. We just want the killing to stop. And it's not two countries in a conflict on equal footing. Palestine doesn't have an army. Israel is a leading military superpower. So even if I'm Jewish, and according to some people, we're part of the lost tribes of Israel, So I'm going to just go ahead and claim a little bit of that just for the purposes of this show. I do not want violent Zionists killing women and children and bombing civilian buildings, hospitals, schools, violating sacred sites in my name. Now, I don't plan to continuously engage in the discourse, but I respect you for challenging me, for making me think on my feet. But if what Israel is doing to the Palestinians was righteous, if it was upright and just, AIPAC would not have to try to make it a felony for people like me or Linda Sarsour or Sean King to criticize what Israel is doing. Seriously, trying to make it a felony to criticize Israel. That is insane, and that is unacceptable. That is a form of fascism, and we cannot stand for that. We have to decide on our own, and we have to seek the truth. And yes, I, as an indigenous person, I can chew gum and walk at the same time. I can rub my belly and pat my head at the same time. I can handle this discourse. The people that tell me to stick to native issues sound like the same people that when we were advocating for changing the Fighting Sioux mascot and challenging all Indian mascots, saying, no, Chase, we got bigger problems. As Native people, we have bigger problems to worry about. Come on, man. We have every burner is frying a problem here. Like, let's just address all of it. We can do all of it. We are that complex. We are that brilliant. We are that dynamic, that forceful, that we can handle all this. And we, the indigenous nations who've lost 100 million people, we have every right to weigh in on what is happening in Israel and Palestine. And we have the right to call it genocide, to call it apartheid. We know open air prisons when we see them. So continue to call on your legislators, continue to back up those people who are speaking truth to power. I see people are coming for Sean King over this same issue. So anyhow, I didn't want to end on that note, but you will hear the truth here. Even the truth burns. And sometimes it burns me. Sometimes it burns the people who want to hide the truth. It always happens that way. So I want to thank you all for paying attention, for listening in. I am not a member of some lost tribe of Israel. I said that in jest, as a joke. We didn't come over here from the Bering Strait through the Isle of Beringia. Whatever they teach you in these schools, believe me, they are lying to us. We just scratch that. I said that as a joke, that I'm a member of the lost tribe of Israel. If it means I can speak on Israel and not get confronted and attacked, then yeah, okay. Just for that limited time, lost tribes of Israel, Hemach Hayelo. But anyhow, come to the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, because we always keep it going. Again, I didn't mean to hit 90 minutes, but we hit it. This has been a great show. Thank you for everyone for tuning in, and most importantly, for sharing the stream. I'm casting out of the sacred Black Hills, and I just want to say, Lila Wopila Tonka Ichichapelo. This has been Cut to the Chase number 16. Actually, thank you to our flagship sponsor, which is the Lakota People's Law Project. Go follow them at Lakota Law. Last Real Indians, follow at Last Real Indians. And we're working on a couple more sponsors. Yes, thank you to Christine. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, everyone. Steve, Marty, everyone for tuning in. You guys, I really do appreciate it. And I just want to recognize one of our podcast subscribers who is thrilled that I use the term in defining, the five-fingered divine flesh-walking being that I called our bodies sacred meat suits. And that is Ray Hanley, who is an avid listener of Cut to the Chase, the live cast, and the podcast. And so we look forward to bringing you more and more. We will always keep it real here. Anyhow, hit us up. If you have story ideas, please feel free to reach out to us. This has been real. Thank you for tuning in, and we are out.